Provision is not limited to what we can predict or control because divine supply does not move according to human planning or human permission. We are taught to believe that provision only comes through clear paths, stable income, careful strategy, and perfect timing. We are told that if we cannot trace it, measure it, or explain it, then it cannot be trusted. But faith teaches something deeper. It teaches that provision is not owned by systems, schedules, or human approval. It flows from a source that sees beyond our sight and works beyond our reach. When we rely only on what we can predict, we limit our expectation to our experience. We expect tomorrow to look like yesterday. We believe help must come from familiar people, familiar jobs, familiar methods. But divine provision often breaks patterns. It shows up when logic has finished talking. It appears after options are exhausted. It arrives when control has slipped through our fingers. This does not mean preparation has no value. It means preparation is not the master. Control is not the provider. Many times we confuse control with security. We hold tightly to plans because they make us feel safe. But safety rooted in control can become a quiet cage. Faith invites us to loosen our grip and trust that provision does not disappear when we stop managing every detail. In fact, it often becomes clearer when surrender replaces strain. What we cannot force, God can arrange. What we cannot predict, God can position. Unexpected provision humbles us because it reminds us that we are supported, not self-sustained. It teaches us to watch instead of panic, to listen instead of rush, to receive instead of resist. It stretches our understanding of how help can arrive and who can carry it. Sometimes provision comes through rest instead of effort, through delay instead of speed, through a closed door that redirects rather than rewards. This kind of provision builds trust rather than pride. It trains the heart to stay open even when the mind is unsure. It allows faith to grow muscles where fear once lived. When we accept that provision is not limited to our control, we make room for grace to move freely, for help to arrive without explanation, for needs to be met in ways that strengthen belief rather than dependence on certainty, leaving us aware that the source was never confined to our plans, our power, or our ability to predict what comes next. Divine help often arrives disguised as interruption because assistance does not always respect our schedules, our preferences, or our sense of order. We expect help to arrive neatly, announced in advance, fitting comfortably into the plan we already made. But interruption is often the only way to get our attention when we are moving too fast, holding too tightly, or trusting the wrong thing. What feels like a disruption may actually be a redirection, a pause placed with purpose rather than inconvenience. Interruptions challenge our sense of control. They arrive as delays, cancellations, sudden conversations, unexpected needs, or changes we did not request. At first, they feel like obstacles. They disturb momentum and force us to stop when we would rather continue. Yet many times these moments are not meant to block progress, but to protect us from going the wrong way. Divine help does not always feel helpful when it first appears. It often feels like resistance, like something standing in the way of what we thought we needed. When help comes disguised as interruption, it tests our discernment. Do we see only the inconvenience, or do we listen for the invitation hidden inside it? A missed opportunity may save us from a greater loss. A closed door may push us toward a better one. A delay may allow resources, strength, or clarity to catch up with us. What we label as bad timing may actually be precise timing that does not flatter our impatience. Interruptions also reveal what we depend on. They expose routines that have replaced reflection and habits that have silenced intuition. When life is interrupted, we are forced to reevaluate what truly matters. We are given space to notice what we were ignoring and hear what we had been drowning out with busyness. In that stillness, guidance often becomes clearer. Divine help is not always gentle. Sometimes it arrives with urgency, shaking comfort so growth can occur. It rearranges priorities, shifts direction, and asks us to trust without full explanation. These moments stretch faith beyond convenience and train the heart to recognize help even when it does not look like relief. What appears as interruption may be the very channel through which provision, protection, or breakthrough enters, teaching us that help is not always soft, not always familiar, and not always welcomed at first, but often perfectly placed within the disruption we wanted to avoid. Scarcity can sharpen faith instead of shrinking it, because lack has a way of stripping life down to what truly matters. When resources feel limited, distractions fall away, and the heart is forced to confront what it trusts most. In seasons of abundance, faith can become casual, even quiet, because needs are easily met and questions feel unnecessary. But in scarcity, faith is called forward. It must speak, stretch, and stand when comfort no longer carries the weight. Scarcity exposes the difference between what we possess and what sustains us. When familiar supports weaken, we discover whether our confidence was rooted in supply or in the source behind it. This exposure can feel uncomfortable, even frightening, but it is also clarifying. It teaches the heart to listen more closely, to pray more honestly, and to depend more deeply. What once felt optional becomes essential. Faith stops being an idea and becomes a daily practice. Lack also trains endurance. When answers do not arrive quickly, faith learns patience without becoming passive. It learns how to wait without surrendering hope. Scarcity slows the pace of life and forces attention onto the present moment. In that space, small mercies become visible. Strength shows up in unexpected ways. Gratitude grows not because everything is good, but because something still is. Faith sharpens as it learns to recognize provision in fragments rather than fullness. Scarcity reshapes prayer as well. Requests become simpler, more direct, less polished. There is no room for performance when the need is real. Words come from honesty instead of habit. Faith becomes less about sounding strong and more about staying present. This kind of prayer deepens connection and builds resilience because it is grounded in truth rather than appearance. Through scarcity, faith develops muscle. It learns how to stand without leaning on certainty. It becomes creative, resilient, and alert. It begins to trust guidance instead of guarantees. What once felt like emptiness becomes a place of formation. Scarcity does not automatically strengthen faith, but when met with openness and trust, it refines it. It teaches belief to see beyond what is missing and to hold steady in the belief that provision is not absent simply because it has not yet arrived, leaving faith clearer, steadier, and more deeply rooted than it was before the season of lack began. What looks like delay may be preparation, because timing is not always about speed, but about readiness. From a human perspective, delay feels like denial, neglect, or failure. We measure progress by movement and assume that if nothing is happening on the surface, nothing is happening at all. But preparation often works quietly. It shapes character, aligns circumstances, and builds capacity long before results become visible. Delay can be the space where foundation is laid rather than time being wasted. In periods of waiting, unseen adjustments are often taking place. Skills are being refined, understanding is being deepened, and resilience is being developed. The delay may be strengthening areas that would collapse under immediate success. What we ask for may require a version of us that does not yet exist. Preparation then becomes necessary, not as punishment, but as protection. Without it, the very thing we desire could overwhelm us or pull us off course. Delay also reorders motivation. It invites reflection on why something is wanted and what is expected from it. When answers come slowly, attachment to outcomes is tested. Desire is refined, pride is softened, and patience is formed. This inner work cannot be rushed. It requires time, repetition, and sometimes discomfort. The waiting period becomes a training ground where values are clarified and intentions are purified. Often, delay aligns external pieces as well. Relationships are formed, resources are moved, and opportunities are positioned beyond our awareness. What feels stagnant on one side may be active on another. Preparation rarely announces itself. It works beneath the surface, connecting details that only make sense later. When the moment arrives, it often does so with a sense of suddenness, even though the groundwork has been long in progress. Delay also teaches trust without immediate reward. It strengthens the ability to remain faithful without constant reassurance. This kind of trust deepens maturity and steadies the heart. Instead of rushing toward relief, it learns to stay anchored in hope. The waiting becomes less about counting days and more about becoming ready. Seen through this lens, delay is not emptiness but formation. It is not the absence of progress but a different kind of movement. Preparation requires patience because it is shaping what cannot be rushed. When the time finally comes, what once felt like delay is recognized as the reason everything holds together, revealing that the pause was never meant to stop the journey, but to prepare it for what it was meant to carry next. Unexpected sources remind us we are not self-made because they reveal the hidden networks of care, guidance, and provision that exist beyond our awareness. We often move through life believing that achievement, success, and survival depend solely on our effort, our planning, and our control. We measure capability by how much we can handle alone, and we take pride in independence. Yet when help arrives from unanticipated people, places, or circumstances, we are confronted with a truth that humbles and enlarges the heart. We are never truly alone, and no success is created in isolation. These unexpected sources may come in the form of a stranger's kindness, a sudden opportunity, an unforeseen turn of events, or wisdom delivered in a quiet conversation. They challenge the belief that provision is predictable or earned entirely through visible effort. The hand that lifts us is often unseen until it makes contact. Recognizing this teaches humility because it reminds us that control is limited and influence is interconnected. It teaches gratitude because even when we do our best, the results we celebrate are rarely the product of our labor alone. Unexpected provision also stretches faith by demanding awareness and openness. It requires us to notice what we might otherwise overlook, to accept help from those we might not have expected, and to trust timing we cannot orchestrate. It breaks the illusion that the world revolves around our plans and shows that life's rhythm is orchestrated by forces beyond immediate perception. Each unanticipated gift, answer, or support becomes evidence of a broader, unseen design, inviting us to walk with curiosity rather than rigidity. Moreover, encountering help from unexpected sources cultivates resilience. It teaches flexibility, creativity, and discernment, reminding us that solutions may arrive in forms that differ from our expectations. What we might have rejected in pride or fear can become the very instrument of restoration, breakthrough, or provision. By seeing the unseen hands at work, we learn to navigate life with openness, acknowledging that while our effort matters, it is never the whole story. Unexpected sources remind us that life is woven from interdependence, not isolation. They expose the truth that every step forward is both a personal effort and a shared gift, and they invite us to trust a larger web of care that sustains us in ways we cannot fully predict or control. Gratitude opens doors logic cannot unlock because it shifts the focus from scarcity to abundance, from limitation to possibility. When we rely solely on reasoning, we evaluate life through what we see, measure, or can predict. Logic tells us to wait, to calculate, to act only when conditions seem perfect. It weighs risk, judges feasibility, and often closes doors because it cannot account for forces beyond human understanding. Gratitude operates in a different dimension. It acknowledges what is already present, celebrates small victories, and trusts that more is possible even when circumstances suggest otherwise. Expressing gratitude changes perception. When we are grateful, we see resources, connections, and opportunities that we might have overlooked in frustration or fear. It is as if the mind clears away the clutter of complaint, comparison, and worry, leaving space for insight, creativity, and inspiration. A grateful heart recognizes that provision is not always visible in form or timing, but is active in ways beyond comprehension. This recognition allows doors to open that logic alone cannot anticipate because it invites unexpected alignment and unforeseen intervention. Gratitude also transforms energy. The act of giving thanks is not passive, it is an energetic shift that communicates readiness to receive and openness to blessing. When we acknowledge what exists rather than fixate on what is missing, we signal faith and receptivity. This energy can attract resources, opportunities, and people who might otherwise remain outside our reach. Logic cannot produce this effect because it operates from evaluation and control rather than connection and trust. Moreover, gratitude cultivates resilience and patience. It reminds us that even in waiting or challenge, life contains elements worthy of appreciation. This awareness sustains hope and sustains action, even when outcomes are delayed or uncertain. It also softens the heart, allowing recognition of provision in unconventional forms or unexpected sources. Gratitude opens doors that reason cannot, not by altering circumstances directly, but by transforming perception, aligning energy, and creating receptivity. It bridges the visible and invisible, the predictable and the mysterious, allowing us to receive what is already moving toward us in ways our minds alone could never calculate or command. Faith speaks even when the cupboard looks empty because true belief is not dependent on visible evidence or immediate results. It is easy to have faith when everything aligns, when resources are abundant, when plans unfold according to expectation. But faith that is tested by emptiness, scarcity, or uncertainty carries a deeper power. It is in the silent moments when need outweighs supply and hope feels fragile, that faith must speak the loudest. To speak in these circumstances is to declare trust not in what is seen, but in what is promised and unseen, to affirm confidence when logic offers only doubt. When the cupboard is bare, faith transforms perception. It allows one to see possibility in what seems impossible. It changes I cannot into I believe that something will arrive, and I lack into I trust that provision is on the way. This speaking is not empty repetition. It is the articulation of belief that energizes action, steadies the heart, and aligns the mind with hope. Even small words of faith, quietly spoken, create a framework for courage to grow and solutions to emerge. Faith speaking in emptiness also teaches endurance. It refuses to surrender to despair even when circumstances appear final. It maintains vision while waiting for delivery and refuses to let temporary absence dictate permanent belief. In this way, it becomes a bridge between the present void and the future fulfillment, connecting desire with expectation and need with provision. Faith in emptiness invites creativity and resourcefulness. When what is available is minimal, speaking faith encourages looking beyond the obvious, trusting unseen forces, and remaining alert to unexpected sources. It strengthens the heart to receive help in unconventional forms and recognize blessing in forms that might otherwise go unnoticed. Speaking faith in empty moments cultivates resilience and reinforces the truth that trust does not rely on the fullness of the cupboard, but on the constancy of the source. It is a declaration that provision exists beyond what is visible, that hope persists beyond what is present, and that belief can generate movement even in apparent absence, sustaining the spirit until fulfillment manifests. Provision is not only material, but also strength, peace, and favor, because the support we truly need often extends far beyond money, possessions, or tangible resources. Life presents challenges that cannot always be solved by wealth or physical supply. A full pantry or a steady paycheck may ease immediate concerns, but they do not guarantee courage to face fear, clarity to make decisions, or resilience to endure trials. True provision includes the unseen elements that sustain the heart, sharpen the mind, and stabilize the spirit when circumstances feel uncertain. Strength is one form of provision that often arrives when our own reserves feel exhausted. It is the inner capacity to rise after failure, to persist when obstacles appear insurmountable, and to continue walking forward despite doubt or fatigue. This kind of strength cannot be earned solely through effort. It is often cultivated in moments of surrender, in trust that help exists beyond our control, and in recognition that resilience is a gift as much as it is a practice. Peace is another essential form of provision. Even amid scarcity, conflict, or confusion, peace allows the mind and heart to remain centered. It provides clarity, reduces fear, and prevents despair from taking root. Peace is not the absence of difficulty, but the presence of confidence that we are held and supported. It opens space for wisdom, discernment, and calm decision-making, creating a foundation for growth that physical resources alone cannot provide. Favor, too, represents a vital form of provision. Favor is the unseen advantage that aligns people, timing, and opportunities in our direction. It is the quiet influence that opens doors, smooths paths, and arranges circumstances in ways we could not orchestrate ourselves. Favor often comes from sources we cannot predict, reminding us that provision is broader than what we plan or pursue. Recognizing that provision includes strength, peace, and favor reshapes how we understand need and abundance. It teaches that even when material resources are limited, we are not helpless. Life's support is multidimensional, and fulfillment depends not only on what we can see and hold, but also on the inner resources, divine alignment, and unseen assistance that sustain us through every season of uncertainty. In the end, the prayer for divine provision from unexpected sources reminds us that life's supply is far greater and more mysterious than we can plan or predict. It teaches us that help often comes when we least expect it, in forms we cannot imagine, and from places we might have overlooked. It calls us to trust beyond logic, to speak faith when all seems empty, and to remain grateful even in waiting. True provision is never limited to what we can touch or calculate. It is found in strength that lifts us, peace that steadies us, favor that aligns us, and opportunities that surprise us. When we open our hearts to the unexpected, when we receive with humility, when we stay alert to hidden blessings, we discover that life's resources are abundant, ever-present, and perfectly timed. And so we stand not in fear of lack, but in expectation of wonder, trusting that the hands that guide us are always at work, preparing, providing, and delivering in ways that exceed our understanding.